Very quick background is that I do a lot of work around leadership communication with a number of C-suite and middle leaders in across various industries. And one of the key programs that I've been doing over the last couple of years has been specifically around a concept that I call culture ad. So where employees and organizations are recognizing through their whole talent management pipeline that they hire for culture ad and not for culture fit. Because often when they have hire for culture fit, that's when they have a lot of blind spots. And what's been happening with me over the last a few weeks or so is obviously because this whole concept around Black Lives Matter has raised its head. What it's the impact it's had on a lot of organizations is that they've had to take a minute because a lot of black employees have been able to raise a lot of issues that have affected them, which have been traditionally parked in terms of other priorities that the business may have. And so for the last 2 weeks online, obviously, and currently booked up until August, there are a lot of organizations that have asked me to come on board because they're very scared and they're very fearful about having this conversation around race and ethnicity at work because they're afraid of saying the wrong thing. And for me, I know this isn't a really emotional time for people, but I've developed this really simple framework that I share with individuals, and I love to share with the audience here for anybody to be able to take away. I call it the 4L framework. Basically, a lot of people are coming from a point of fear. So the opposite of fear is love. So how do we create a space of love where you love yourself enough to be able to speak your truth, where you encourage other people to be able to speak as well? The second one is about language. Now, what are the terms that we use? The terms have been bandied around about white privilege and about things like diversity and inclusion. What do these things actually mean to people when they're having a conversation? Can we make sure that when we're talking, we're not talking at cross purposes so people understand that language? The third one is about listening. So how do we make sure that senior leaders, middle leaders, and all people in the staff are listening, not only actively, but they're asking effective questions in order to be able to move it forward? And then the fourth one is about leverage. Now we know where we're coming from. We've used the right language and we've listened. How do we leverage this using a really good business case and tying it back into our purpose, our vision, and our mission? How do we make sure that this difficult conversation is part of our overall strategy? How we make people feel they have a sense of belonging? The second part that's come out of this is the identification of a talent pipeline. So I'm working with one of the Magic Circle firms at the moment where we're talking about how do we increase the presence of more black professionals being able to go through associate and eventually into partner level. And the learning we're getting from that. And obviously last week there was a big report that came out about a lot of the Magic Circle firms not having any black partners at all. And people are starting to ask questions, and a lot of that's coming through to my inbox. And a lot of that is being able to speak to senior leaders and people in recruitment and people across the whole chain as to how do you recruit? Where do you recruit from? What are the mentoring programs you have in place? What are the coaching programs you have in place? The leadership, the sponsorship. What are all these things we have as a general whole, and how can a general in the organization? And how can you make sure that at this point in time, when so much energy is being focused around the plight of black professionals, how can you use that to learn not just but for black professionals, but for all ethnicities and for all of those marginalized or underrepresented groups in the organization that can learn from that? And then the last point that I want to raise so I can finish early is about the wider conversation. How does that affect the supply chain? How does it affect the way that you do mentoring programs or you recruit from universities, and making sure that you're not just restricting it to a similar or a very restricted and small line of individuals that can come into the organization? Because yes, this is a pivotal time and Black Lives Matter has awakened a lot of conversations that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. But I'm of the belief that wherever you are, if you're a leader, you should be happy and okay with uncomfortable conversations. And if it means an outside facilitator like myself coming in to be able to shift that forward, by all means, let's learn the lesson now. Let's make sure we share that knowledge, and let's make sure that we move forward, making sure that whenever you are in an organization, you feel that you have a sense of belonging and that you align with the values for the company that says, we want you here and we will go out of our way to make you feel welcome. So those are my insights with 40 seconds left. I made sure I did it quicker than I said. My insights on being able to move and work with a lot of organizations around the Black Lives Matter movement. But the wider input is how can we make our culture stronger in each and every one of our organizations?